Welcome to Generation Movie on Monday, February 19th. My name is J.W. Colwell. I'm joined as always by Rich Drees, my partner in crime, my Sonny to my Michael, or I'm his Sonny to his Michael, whatever it is. And then we have Connie. We have Connie joining us as well. Wow. Natasha Bogutzki. Welcome on a fine Monday night. First off, I want to thank everybody that was worried about me. I had a hospital stay last week, so everybody, I'm at 75%. I'm recovering nicely. I'm doing whatever I can, but I'm here to talk to Godfather. I'm here because this is important. Now, funny thing is, Greatest Show on Earth, not as important as The Godfather. So unfortunately, Greatest Show on Earth will have to wait till next year, maybe. That broke my heart. It broke my heart too. I mean, everybody wants to talk about it. A movie where Jimmy Stewart plays a clown who's actually a homicidal maniac. But we're gonna
one of his very few homicidal maniac roles outside of that.
Vertigo. He's not really a nice person in Vertigo.
That's true.
But I want to thank everybody for asking, questioning, all those other things. I'm back. I'll try to be as back as I can be until the wheels come off. Anyway. News of the day. The only really big news is at some point Sony's going to lose the license, right, Rich? Like at some point.
I don't think so. I mean, technically the only thing they need to do to retain their Spider-Man license is be in production of a single film once every 3 years. If they decide to scrap their Sonyverse or their Spider-Verse stuff,
the only good thing about the hospital is that I got to avoid Madam Web.
Animated film, once every 3 years, and they can hang on to it. And
the only thing that was good about being in the hospital, Rich, was that I didn't get to see Madam Web. That's the only good thing about being in the hospital. But an interesting thing happened. This Bob Marley movie made way more money than anybody was anticipating, which begs the question: Are musical biopics one of the safest bets in Hollywood right now? Because you can make a musical biopic and whether they're good, whether they're flawed, whether they're not well done, they tend to make money. And this has a rare case of a movie that's scoring very low with critics, but super high with cinema score. The cinema score is an A coming out of this movie, which usually means word of mouth, which usually means that it might be able to hang on for 2 or 3 weeks. As theaters are clawing on to just hanging out like a kitten on a poster waiting for Dune 2 to arrive. But I was looking at the top 5. Wonka's in the top 5, Rich. Fucking Wonka. And that opened in December.
I miss the days when we would have a film hang around in theaters for 8, 10, 12 weeks in the top 5 or 7.
It's in the top 5 and it's available. Like, it's in the top 5 and it's available at home. Like, we're in dark times at the box office we just need to get to March. There's so many popcorn tins that are on the way. We got the questionable Dune popcorn tin. There are at least 5 different Ghostbuster tins from 5 different theater chains. They're all awesome.
Yeah. Local Cinemark already has theirs out, which is a giant Slimer. It's $25 though.
That's low. Down here we're paying $40-$50 for the popcorn tin.
Geez.
So
wow. Yeah,
we're in Florida. There's sales tax, there's asshole tax. There's all kinds of stuff that we're paying for.
I mean, I would like to get like either the Ecto one or the Ghost Trap.
I like the Ghost Trap one's really nice because the Ghost Trap, you don't have to eat out of the trap. Right, the Ghost Trap has 4 cylinders around it, or 4 little like rectangles around it that make like it's the thing that captures the ghost. Mm-hmm. The beam that comes up. That's where the popcorn sits.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay, that's creative at least. That's fun. Natasha, are you going to buy a Dune popcorn cup or a Ghostbusters popcorn cup?
I don't eat popcorn.
Yeah. Oh, she's not a popcorn person at all. Yeah. When we go to the movies, the two of us, or in a group or whatever, I never have popcorn. I always, that's a treat for when I'm by myself. So like
popcorn, I'm pretty okay with the smell most of the time. The smell actually makes me nauseous.
Okay, so it makes you okay. So essentially, you are the evil professor from Real Genius.
Never seen it.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay,
I do remember like the first time back in a theater after lockdown, and we walked into Cinemark, and that wham popcorn fell.
I know. I thought it was really gonna be.
I smiled because I was like, it's nice to be back, and I hear next to me,
good to be home. Good to be home.
Just like, oh no.
The movie lady does not like popcorn. Good to know.
It's not that I don't like it. It makes me sick. It actually makes me sick. So does chocolate and peanut butter together. I can eat one Reese's cup like once every 6 months.
So essentially, you've gone against everything that the American cinema stands for. Reese's cups and popcorn gone. Everything's gone.
Doesn't like. I used containers of peanut butter as a kid.
Ken McKernan, I could easily see you like just hands full of peanut butter in your face. Good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken. Joe Regley. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see you all back.
Hey,
Michael
Joe,
Patty
Ken.
says, bonsoir, everyone. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, Michael.
Bonsoir.
Let's see. Ken, feel better, my friend. Thanks, Ken. I know you were fighting the good fight, too. Madam Web was ridiculously bad. It was basically a shitter version of DC's TV show Birds of Prey.
I heard someone else say that, like in an article.
I'm not sure I would go that far. I think it's not a good. It's.
I think that's insulting the Birds. First off, that Birds of Prey TV show wasn't that bad. That Birds of Prey TV show that ran for 6 episodes wasn't awful.
Episodes, and honestly, it found its footing around episode 11. To be honest,
yeah, it wasn't bad. Musicals are niche right now. They do well for all, but everything will falter. I don't think everything's going to falter. I don't think. For example, Ken, when you say everything's going to falter, I don't think Dune's going to falter.
No, that won't falter.
So I don't think Ghostbusters is going to falter. I don't think Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire, is going to falter. I think once we get to March, everybody gets their sea legs back, and this idea that we have Dolby screens that are playing Les Mis this week.
I was so upset that I'm missing that. I want to see that again.
Yeah, but it's a cry for help, Natasha.
I sat through that movie 7 times in the theater. I want to make it 8 because
not in the movie. I think.
Wait a second. I thought it was.
Get people.
Wait a second. So let's go through this. I thought it was just a cry for help for theaters trying to get movies back, but now I realize, Natasha, it's also a cry for help for you.
Look, right now the record holder of the most amount of times I've seen. The record holder right now for the most amount of times I've seen a film is Rise of Skywalker. If I see Les Mis one more time, they'll be tied, and I'll be okay.
Why? Really? Rise of Skywalker? Rise of Skywalker? Really? Jesus.
Yeah.
That seems, again, another cry for help. But no. Speaking of cries for help, it's not actually a cry for help, but I'm doing a shift change. I do want to congratulate you two for this.
Thank you.
So 8 years with Gilda, now available everywhere you can stream, correct? YouTube and whatnot?
YouTube, Facebook.
YouTube or on our Facebook page.
We have developed a wonderful new thing called a clip on the show, and we're not going to get sued for this because you two are the owners.
Wait, you...
What, Natasha?
I said you learned how to stream clips. Joe and Ken will be very...
Natasha, was I going to be nice and do it? I'm running a clip for you.
Yes.
I went out of my way. A week when I'm recuperating, I'm at 75%. I go out of my way for you. and you're going to hate The Godfather. And that's where we're headed tonight. I can feel it already.
We were separated already.
1 month.
You were gone.
1 month.
You've been gone longer than 1 month. Remember when we went to Cannon Beach last year? And I came up behind you and I tried to kiss you on your neck? Remember? You pulled away. And that wasn't the first time. But you already had 1 foot out the door. And after you left, I needed to go to somebody that can help me cope. Because you weren't there. And I knew that this was coming.
No alimony. We split the liquid assets, and you can keep the house.
Haven't I given you enough already?
Joel, I'm not the one who broke the marriage vow.
Debatable.
And I really don't want to go to court. So are you willing to accept what I'm giving you?
What, the
or
scraps?
we can make a mess of it. And I think you'd like to avoid the publicity.
You're willing to go that far? Do you still love me?
I love who we were, not who we are.
That's marriage. It's taking the bitter with the sweet and still being able to stand together through the worst.
Tell me, how do you do that when the worst is the person that you're tied to?
What did I do to deserve this?
Put me in a beautiful cage, and you expected me to be grateful.
Oh my God. That seems like a very serious cup of coffee. I suggest for both of them a little bit of decaf. Okay, so I wholeheartedly encourage everybody who likes the show, who enjoys Natasha's, views on film and everything, to check this out. Rich and her have really done a great job. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't just throw these things around willy-nilly. But everybody can find that on YouTube. Anywhere you want to find your this movie, you can watch the whole thing. It's pretty short because it is a short film after all. But it's dark. It's dark and honest and awful and amazing. Just painful. Just wonderfully painful.
We have 2 other things that we're looking at rolling out at some point in the next probably 6 to 8 months. We haven't quite nailed down our schedule on that yet.
I can't promise I'll know how to play clips by then, but we'll see what happens.
Subscribe on the YouTube channel or the Cineverse Facebook page.
Well, yeah, you can Cineverse Facebook page, and also just find they intend to announce things on here too every once in a while. So show up on a Monday night, you might get some information like where to watch 8 Years with Gilda. With that, 2 more comments and then we're off.
By the way, I want to say congratulations to everyone who was at MegaCon as well as NEPA Comic-Con this past weekend.
Yeah, I have pictures. I have pictures. You better see Les Miserables twice. Nobody needs to see that. Congrats, guys. Bravo. Nobody needs to sit through Russell Crowe's performance twice. Jackman's fine, but Crowe is brutal.
I go.
For Russell Crowe?
I love Russell Crowe so much.
Not in Les Mis.
Yes, even in Les Mis.
Not in Les Mis. You love Russell Crowe in Gladiator. You love Russell Crowe in Master Commander. Nobody loves Russell Crowe in Les Mis.
I do.
Okay. That's it. We're at the precipice. Here we go, Rich. This is the movie we're talking about tonight. This is a movie called The Godfather. This movie was made.
Johnny Dangerously. Oh, The Godfather. Sorry.
Johnny Dangerously?
Oh, no. I watched the wrong movie.
I watched the wrong movie. Your Your testicles and you. Okay. It stars this guy, Marlon Brando. It also stars this guy looking very dapper in silver and black, by the way. Mm-hmm. This suit at the end of the movie is, by the way, the best outfit in the entire movie. Because he looks like he's like gonna go play for Al Davis. So anyway, we got Al Pacino, we got everything. Let's start where we always start. Let's start with production. Now, to say that this film was a fucking mess, Rich, is a modest understatement. We had like there are so many good stories about the making of The Godfather, the background of the production, that they actually made a show on Paramount Plus called The Offer, which isn't great, but if you're a Godfather fan, you really can't miss it, because it's got a lot of the really like some of the true stories interwoven with fictional accounts, but it has Robert Evans in it, and I love Robert Evans. As I was watching The Godfather today, I got to watch a thing when Paramount was bought out by Gulf Western. This movie was in pre-production. It was also right around the time that Love Story came out. There is a video floating around that I was able to watch today, Rich, where Robert Evans sat on a desk and started talking about the movies that need to be made by Paramount, and that one of them was The Godfather and the other one was Love Story, and that basically Paramount had commandeered the market for books in the early 70s. Because Love Story
was this a film that was going out to like theater owners, like to be shown?
No, this was a film. This is a film that went to stockholders from Gulf and Western. So it was full Robert Evans. Like, it was full groovy, amazing Robert Evans.
And if you've ever read his autobiography, the kid stays in
the picture. Oh my God.
Seen the film, the documentary adaptation of it.
The man was a genius. The man was a genius. The man had a lot of heart, some like really hard, like when you are married to Ally McGraw and you lose Ally McGraw to Steve McQueen, you had some tough time. But like what I was saying, the most interesting thing is that they bought this book, and one of the rumors going around was that it was bought for $10,000. Then the number shot up to $100,000, and then the story came out that Mario Puzo sold it for $80,000 because he had $10,000 to $20,000 in gambling debts. So just amazing, like the stories around this movie. They could get nobody to direct this movie, Rich. Like, they had everybody. Like, the names are mind-boggling when you look at them. Let's see. Sergio Leone, Peter Yates, Richard Brooks, Arthur Penn, Franklin Schaffner, Costa Gravis, Otto Preminger. Like, just the sheer volume of names. And Sergio Leone basically didn't want to do it, and this is a great story. He didn't want to do it because he was working on his version of gangster movies called Once Upon a Time in America, which came out in 1984 and is a fantastic movie. But it's
probably my favorite of his films.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Has an amazing cream puff sequence. Can't beat the cream puff sequence.
I've not seen it.
Can't beat the cream puff sequence. That's all I'm going to say. It doesn't need to be. I don't need to extrapolate out. Rich knows what I'm talking about. Anybody who's seen the movie knows what I'm talking about. The cream puff sequence rules all. But what I was going to say is the interesting thing here is that even that movie was cut to bits by Warner's, right? And then they eventually made a director's cut for Sergio Leone. So everybody that's involved in this movie.
Interesting about that, if I can cut in for a sec.
Sure.
Sergio Leone's original cut and the one that was restored later at the end of the 80s was very much it wasn't a straight timeline. It was very much a lot of flashbacks and everything, very much out of chronological order. And we see Coppola do that suddenly in Godfather 2 after Once Upon a Time in America comes out. And I think maybe because Leone was working on Once Upon a Time in America, so he couldn't do Godfather, he still wound up having an influence on Godfather too.
Yeah, it's an amazing influence, really. I think this, there are so many stories. They are brought up in the show The Offer. You can go over a lot of them, but a lot of it, this movie jumped through so many flagpoles. Like, first flagpole was, we're going to set it in present day Kansas City. Coppola gets the directing reins and says, no, it has to be a period piece. Right? The next thing they say to him is, we're going to shoot on a soundstage. No. It needs to be in New York, and it needs to be on location in Sicily. Midway through the shoot, they run out of money. So they can't do the Sicily shoot. Like, it's just a comedy of errors. It's a weird thing, and it's an amazing circle of fates that when you have all these problems on some of these movies, Rich, and we've talked about so many movies on our show, the problems end up becoming the gold. Like, for some reason, great filmmakers take problems like the shark not working, or not having enough money to get to Sicily, or having to find places they can shoot in New York on the cheap. That all of a sudden, when they do come through, it becomes gold. It becomes like, it's like an amazing kind of kismet.
It's the idea that, when you have limitations, you have to be extra creative to overcome them and find, better ways to do something than just throwing cash at a problem, which some may say is the current issue with the state of blockbuster filmmaking today. Natasha, you were about to say something?
Yes. I have a question for you two lovely gentlemen.
Okay.
If they didn't mention a couple of times that, people don't want to fight, we just got over a war, he's a war hero, blah, 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 would you have any idea what decade this film takes place in?
Yes.
Yo, gosh, yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
Well,
just the Macy's, the vintage Macy's, the vintage cars, the vintage Macy's.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of subtle hints. Also, the biggest key hint, and this is kind of a small thing, but it's Michael's uniform. He's a returning Marine.
That is literally the only costume they got right in the whole damn movie. Sorry.
That's okay. So we're headed to dark places tonight.
Whoever was doing hair and makeup needed to be fired or severely spanked, because everything pointed late 60s, early 70s. From the hairdos straight down to the dress that Diane Keaton wears to the wedding in the first 10 minutes of the movie. It does not yell 40s at all. I had to Google.
It's not 40s. It's not 40s. It's late 40s, early 50s.
That's still the 40s.
The movie goes from like 48 to what, 55, Rich?
Not to like kind of contradict you here, but it was nominated for Best Costume Design at the Oscars that year.
Oh, I don't give a fuck. It's not like they didn't have references in all those movies.
I'm sorry. What's your movie opinion? I don't give a fuck. Okay, let's get some comment. Let's get a couple comments because I see some. So let's see. We got bless you, Rich.
Thank you, Joseph. Bravo.
And have you ever seen The Godfather Chronicles or 7 hours plus version? I haven't, but I need to watch it in shifts, laugh out loud. Here's a couple things. Rich understands me on this one. I tend to only want to watch things. I don't like chronological order. I've gotten away from chronological order. I think it hurts Star Wars movies. And I'll give you an example. Star Wars movies and Marvel movies, for examples. The chronological order thing doesn't work for me for two reasons. One, if you show new Star Wars fans episodes 1, 2, and 3, and you don't show them 4, 5, and 6 first, there is a very good chance that you lose them. And I'm a big believer in release order. I'm a big believer in making sure, like, if you see 4, 5, and 6 and you like Star Wars, then you can watch 1, 2, and 3 and 7, 8, 9. Like, you'll be into it. But if you watch 1, 2, and 3 first, a trade dispute just doesn't cut it. And that hurts. And the same goes with Marvel. Because, I have people all the time who want to watch Marvel in chronological order. Are you okay?
I am the argument against that because my first Star Wars movie was Phantom Menace.
Dude, I knew you were going down a bad road here for you.
This is a bad path.
That was my first Star Wars movie ever.
And I'm sorry for that. There's nothing I can do about your birth.
I loved it.
Okay, but
dude, one thing you're going to have to learn, and there is a generation behind us where the prequel trilogy was really their first big screen Star Wars experience. And even if some of them will admit that Jar Jar is dumb, they still have their own nostalgia for it the way we do for the original trilogy.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is,
let them embrace it on their own and let them love it.
And I love the trade agreement stuff. Loved it.
You love the Trade Federation?
I was 4 years old listening to politics going, yeah, the pod racing's fun. The lightsabers are cool, but where's the nitty gritty? What's the nitty gritty? And as it being my first ever Star Wars movie, yes.
You were 4 going, what's the nitty gritty?
Yes.
What were you raised like? Were you raised like outside of a bar? Like what is going on?
Rich, would you like to?
Okay. No, I know we're not gonna explain. I'm just
her mother to kind of get the whole idea of all of this, dude. I love her mom.
No,
she's
I don't.
nice,
but this is
her mom.
But what I'm saying is chronological order for Marvel also doesn't work.
Spent time with like kiddie stuff. She was like thrown in the deep end of grown up media at an early age. And
okay, well, that explains so much now.
It's formed a great partner that I have.
Yes, that is explains so much.
Where I will reference something he has no idea what the hell I'm talking about either.
But that's what I'm saying though is chronological order usually for me does not work as well as release order. So when you say we're gonna cut The Godfather into a chronological order, I'd much rather just watch The Godfather and then The Godfather Part 2 and not watch The Godfather Part 3. So, like,
well, it's kind of pointless to rearrange that because I think the flashbacks kind of have a reason that they happen in certain parts of the narrative.
Well, they happen during a jarring moment. They always happen during a jarring moment. So, but I understand. I understand the idea that everybody wants to put everything in chronological order, right? I also understand that everybody wants to I blame Ridley Scott a little bit because he got 7 versions of Blade Runner out before anybody was done buying them. Do you know what I mean? So now we have a whole generation of it's not really finished yet. And then George started doing it, and it's like it got worse. But so this movie, production-wise, let's also talk about the idea, Rich. That
no idea what you're talking about multiple versions of Blade Runner.
You're a liar. You're a liar. Liar. I saw 2 different versions of Blade Runner on the same day in Washington, D.C., where it was Blade Runner Day. So, liar. Okay. But let's talk about other facets of the production. Original facet of the production is that Al Pacino was not wanted by anyone and was actually under contract. So Paramount actually had to buy him out of the contract when Coppola would only work for him. Also, nobody wanted Marlon Brando at this point. Brando at this point was at the edge of being useful, to say the least. They had to take out a bond to make sure that he wouldn't fuck up production. They made him do an audition, a screen test.
How dare they?
Which for Brando at the time was insane. And they had so many other people. Like the casting on this. First off, in the book, Michael is described as Robert Redford. So obviously they wanted Robert Redford for Michael. In the book, he's described that he doesn't look anything like Sonny, and he doesn't look anything like Fredo. So take that as whatever you want. So they had tons of people for that role. They also had tons of people for the Brando role. They had like Carlo Ponte, Ernest Borgnine, George C. Scott, Richard Conte, Anthony Quinn, and Orson Welles.
See Orson.
No, I could not see that. That is, I could see Borgnine. I could see Ernest Borgnine. I could see Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Brando apparently did his own makeup at his house for the audition that they set up. Coppola set up with him, put in cotton balls in his mouth. And then what Coppola did, one of the tricks that happened during the audition, was he mixed Brando's audition in with all the other auditions. So they had all these different, like a test screen of a bunch of people. Brando's was in the middle. And of course, Brando's hit the production people in the mouth with how good it was. Robert Duvall, who you deem as MVP of the movie, he was also not locked in at casting with Sonny and Tom Hagen and Michael was all over the place. Originally, James Caan was supposed to be Michael. But then they shifted James Caan over to Sonny because he wasn't that much taller than Pacino. So it was realistic. Robert Duvall had the big one that he had going against him was Al Martino. Actually, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Basically, Duvall was the only person cast for Tom Hagen. And then they had a bunch of like little things that kind of like interrupted the production. And the production was chaotic at best. They had, rumored Teamster troubles. They also had a whole situation that's either true or not true, depending on who you believe, when they basically got into trouble with one of the biggest union heads on the East Coast. I think his name was Jimmy Colombo. And he ran the Teamsters, ran a couple of things. He at that point ran an Italian-American organization that found the film offensive and basically demanded many constraints through the production of the film for it to make it to theaters. But what else? Any other thing that jump out at you about the production, Rich?
Question: did you just get like a fizz off of whatever it was you just opened?
Yep.
Okay, it was very loud, and I thought something blew on my end. Like I got a second.
Well, it couldn't be the tree. The tree's going to live forever. Yeah, it was my. It's the new sparkling ice Starburst, zero sugar.
Ooh.
Yeah, Starburst flavored.
The mocha cocoa.
Delicious.
It's fascinating when you start looking at these different permutations of actors for different roles here, and the number of different paths this movie could have tumbled down with those, different castings.
Got lucky. Every single one.
I think because everybody, this is like a big famous film that's well loved, that people are very interested in. You always get a deeper dive into like the look at the casting process. No one's going to care about the casting process, I think, of, who else was on the short list for roles in, unfortunately, say Madam Web. But it's always interesting because, 2 weeks ago we're talking about Casablanca, and that had, a number of different roles,
casting permutations. And that's the thing, like the production stories on these movies, Rich, right? And Natasha, the production stories, they're always these insane, everything comes together right at the end kind of things. And this movie is the way it's shot, the way the way the cinematography is. Like, let's talk about that for a second. It's a beautiful movie, but it is a dark movie, and it is a movie that, cinematographer Gordon Willis, one of the great cinematographers of all time, basically set it up specifically to look a specific way. Now, recently they've been in the 2000s, they've put it back together with all the different processes. That was another one of the vignettes I got to watch today about like how they came together to do the 4K version of the movie, and how they were able to take pieces of all these different prints that have been scattered around the world for 60, 70 years. And just be able to put them all together and make a one perfect version of the movie. But Gordon Willis shot the movie darks, lights, very darks. So like when you realize the first 25 minutes of the movie is either in a dark office or at a wedding that is like a festival, right? And it's shot it's basically shot documentary style. It's a unique choice. It's a really unique choice because the only time you see full versions of the crowd is when, or not full versions of the crowd, but the only time you see when the characters will move in and out of the crowd, they're the only ones that get the close-ups. So it's a really expertly shot film in that regard. And Gordon Willis should get a lot of credit for making that office look like the black hole of human existence. That office, everybody going into that office is either wearing white or light, and they all seem to come out of it darker. You know what I mean? Like, it's just making choices, and it's really interesting. The way it looks is really interesting.
And the fact that, you needed, special lenses to capture what very little light there was in that space to begin with.
There is no right.
Freaking
there is
and recognizable.
Well, even think about it. When he goes to the curtains, like even the curtains are heavy curtains that he's behind. So it's like, like nobody, they like, not only can light not get in, but neither can human existence. Okay. Box office. So this is the beginning. This movie could be considered the beginning of blockbuster culture, right? We have a young director, Francis Ford Coppola, part of the young auteurs, part of the George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Peter Bogdanovich, that clique of Walter Murch, that clique of people, right? Why are you eating cannoli?
That's perfect.
You're supposed to take the cannoli, leave the gun, Natasha.
I did taste the cannoli. Now I'm eating it.
These are the rules. Does that mean Rich Ryder getting a shot? Shit. Okay. It could. The box office in this movie, Rich, in the 70s is astounding. It is, it played in 6 theaters on its opening weekend, Rich. At any given point, the highest amount of theaters it played in the country at any given time was 596 theaters. Most of those theaters played an average of 3 weeks.
Which is about 30% of what a blockbuster gets today in a wide open release.
Well, yeah, if your Ghostbusters Dune are going to open on 4,000 screens, right? We're coming up. But get this, $302,000 in that first week in New York. 6 theaters in New York are playing it. $300,000 in his first weekend. It ends up being 0.2% of the total gross, Rich. The legs on the movie were astounding. 25 weeks in the top 5. It ends up grossing $134 million in 1972, which at the time was one of the highest grossing films of all time. The only other movie to have broken the $100 million mark at that point, Rich, can you guess it?
I'm gonna guess Sound of Music.
That is a great guess, because that's correct. Sound of Music was the only other movie to ever cross the $100 million mark in its 60s run, which is again astounding feat. We talked about movies and money, and I guess
that kind of based on the fact that a couple years ago I was doing some research about the Eric Theater chain in Harrisburg, just for fun, and I had looked at an article about that mentioned the one theater that I saw as a kid. I saw Star Wars, Empire, Flash Gordon, Chariots of Fire, a number of
that's a good theater.
And when it opened, it played Sound of Music for over a year straight on one single screen.
That's
and
crazy.
The print never got a scratch on it because they had a professional union projectionist. Which
I miss projectionists. I'm not going to lie to you. The theater my dad had when we were younger, there was a projectionist, Mel Cooperberg. I believe he's still alive in Monticello, New York. An amazing man, but he was a professional. He knew how to cut movies. He knew how to maintain projectors. He knew everything. And just Mel Cooperberg. My hat's off to you. I appreciate you every day.
I would have guessed either Ben-Hur or 10 Commandments.
Yeah, those are very good guesses. This was the first movie though that had the blockbuster kiss, Rich, because then it goes worldwide, right? Mm-hmm. It grosses 136 million domestic, and then it grosses 133 million worldwide. So we're looking at 270 million. Now, the interesting thing there is you go, oh my God, where did this money go? But like everybody and their brother in this movie took gross points. So Brando took a flat sum and 6%. Coppola took a flat sum and 6%. So this is one of the very true cases of, and this is an interesting that came up on something I was watching.
Which is about $16 million. 6% of that is $16 million.
An amazing amount of money. And the reason why we're getting Megalopolis, essentially. And we have a vineyard. That's Francis Ford Coppola Vineyard. But what I would say, the interesting thing about the box office also, Rich, and we're going to get to it in a moment, but this film is a perfect thing of commerce and filmmaking, right? It's a people-pleasing movie, and it's also a really well-done movie. There was one of the vignettes I watched today. Spielberg got on and was talking about how jealous he was of Francis Ford Coppola, and after having seen it in a private screening with George and his other buddies, turned to George Lucas and I quote, this is what he said, "I'm going to give up filmmaking because I can't do that." Which is, to me, Rich, mind-boggling, because we now know that Spielberg is not light years beyond Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, he's doing fine. Okay. But this movie broke records. It lasted forever. It played for weeks. Also in the vignette I saw today, you would have appreciated it, Richard Belzer was on. And Richard Belzer talked about the opening weekend where him and his dad went. And basically they talked about that. And then apparently at the same theater, John Turturro and his dad was at the same theater.
Wow.
And they talked about it, that both of them went on the same weekend to see the movie opening weekend, Saturday opening. And they were both in the same theater because that was their Lowe's downtown was the Lowe's that everybody went to. The vignettes that were part of the package I got when I purchased it are pretty amazing. Like, they're really amazing little vignettes. One's all about Godfather World, which is just all the different ways Godfather has influxed our world. But the box office of this movie is astounding. It's an amazing.
That was a theme park that they were planning.
If they did, it would be successful.
Cars on the causeway.
Oh my god, it'd be amazing. You have to avoid the bullets. You have to avoid the bullets. So critical response then and now. I said this to Rich before Natasha got in the green room today. I think 2 is better, and I'm going to stick with 2 being better.
As long as you don't talk about any spoilers, we're good because I still haven't seen it.
I'm not gonna talk about it. I think 2 is better.
Good.
But what I will say is, what I did find interesting to me today that was, first off, movies, the first 25 minutes are pretty astounding. Like, you're at the wedding, you find out he can't refuse any requests on his daughter's wedding day. You find out some of the requests are not really great. They're dark and they're awful. But it's just, Brando's really great. And Duvall is very good. I like Duvall very much in this movie. And, Caan is perfectly cast as the kind of, Randy Cad brother, the hothead. And Pacino in the early sequences, before the bile starts to seep into his character, right? He's nice, he's pleasant with Diane Keaton. They're a happy couple, everything's great. I think the movie is pretty astounding. I don't know, and I don't think it's better than 2, and I don't know that for its visceral sense of accomplishment, it is not a traditional gangster movie, right? Because it doesn't play like a 30s gangster movie, and it certainly doesn't play like anything we get after Mean Streets in the 70s, right? So it's kind of in this world all its own, and it creates the world all its own, and you sit there for 3 hours, and you transported, Rich, mesmerized, transported. It's like you're in it.
What I think is interesting about the movie, and I was thinking about it as I was watching it this afternoon, and its approach to violence. You see violence when it's on a personal level, like we said, Sonny on the Causeway, or Michael in the restaurant, and he shoots the 2 people, and
Staccato and the captain, police captain.
Yeah. Or Apollonia blows up while he's in Sicily.
Apollonia just blows up.
Like, you never just see like random people getting shot up. When they go to war with the other gangs, you don't see a lot of just like a montage of drive-by shootings and stabbings and stuff like that.
No, because that's too basic.
The 30s gangster movie from Warner Brothers.
Right, it's too basic. It's too basic for it.
Yeah, this movie really is interested in the characters themselves and the effect that this life has on them. Because you start off with, obviously you start off the big character arc as Michael going from, that's my family, sorry about that, don't worry about it, to I am in charge of the family. He's right there at the center of it. And
he goes from senator to Godfather very quick. He goes from possible senator to Godfather very quick.
Yeah, but his character arc, has him trying to maybe put himself on one side of the door with Diane Keaton from his family, and then it ends with that door between the 2 of them. Literally, it gets shut on her as she's standing there watching him, having that conversation that we don't get to hear.
Oh yeah, the incredible, the ending of the movie is absolutely astounding.
All of that, then with the hey gangsters, bang 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 bang.
Well, yeah, and actually, you said the montage. It doesn't do the montage of the drive-bys. What it does is this really interesting montage of like newspaper articles come to life, where the people are in black and white, but they're bloodied up.
Yeah, you do a little bit of that.
It's very creative, and it's very not what a traditional gangster movie is. And I think
it's more reportage than it is, like exploited.
I think that's one of the test of time things for this movie. I think what it is, because so we had all the gangster movies like Paul Muni, James Cagney, right? In the 40s, 50s. The bad guys are charismatic, but they're still bad guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
This movie creates a world of gray. And it's a world of gray that you can get enmeshed in. Like, well, yeah, if they tried to shoot my dad, I'd get a little pissed off too. I don't know that I'd murder somebody, but I'd be, I'd certainly want to take up arms or something. And I think
somebody would need to talk me down.
and again, the other side of it is it's so different from the Scorsese world we're going to get with Mean Streets and with Goodfellas and with Casino, right? It's so different from those that it kind of just creates this world all on its own. And in the world of its own, it's created its own fandom. It's the ultimate movie of commerce and like spectacle and just being immersed. Natasha, you look bored. What do you think?
I'm not bored. I'm listening and thinking.
Okay. Well, this was your first time today.
Watching The Godfather.
Process it. But
where are you at?
Thoughts? Where are you on this?
I think it's a brilliant piece of work. I have nothing to say about the fact that, it was made in a different time. I get that. There are some pieces that I don't feel are adequately wrapped up even in 3 hours, or pieces that feel more like plot fodder.
You felt Mo Green deserved more time?
Fuck Mo Green.
Yeah, that's everybody's answer, by the way. Everybody's answer is fuck Mo Green.
Well, for example,
to be fair, this is only the first half or so of the book. They had no idea that they were going to do Godfather Part 2, but they found that where they got to felt like a natural ending point for at least part of this story.
Yes, for the adaptation.
Let's use Apollonia, for example.
Okay.
This is
she had it coming.
This is a person who apparently, when Michael saw her, thunderbolt, literally love at first sight. And she blows up in a car. And then what?
Okay, so can I give you my opinion on Apollonia as a character?
Nice
it's not
tip.
just it's yes.
Literally the only bit of nudity in the entire film comes in that one scene from a character who's plot fodder.
The answer is yes. Yes, wholeheartedly. What I was going to say, though, like, the answer is definitely yes. But what I was going to say to you, I always viewed the Apollonia thread. Michael is in Sicily. He is under duress. He has constant watch from people, but he's constantly being told by the guy who's watching him, hey, you got to be careful, got to whatever. I always viewed Apollonia as Michael being homesick and Michael just needing more people around him. Like, think about, he's walking the hills of Sicily with the two guys with the shotguns for like 10 minutes, and you're just like sitting there. I think he views Apollonia does hit him like a thunderbolt, but I don't think Apollonia represents. I don't think he's ever. He may bring her home, but I always viewed it that he needed more backup. This is Michael starting to build the wall around Michael, right? And Apollonia dying in a car blowing up is what it is. Yes, it's a plot. It's a plot twist, sure. And is it just a plot fodder? Sure. But I always viewed it as Michael, after a certain point, after the hospital sequence, Michael starts building walls around him. Michael has walls at all points around him.
But should there not have been something mentioned at one point or fucking other?
About what? No, because I think the thing about Michael is when Michael becomes the Don, when he becomes Don Corleone, right?
Okay.
His view of, like, I think his view of things is I need an heir. I need more people surrounding me. Her blowing up in a car to me is Michael not blowing up in a car.
I mean,
does that make sense?
I mean, yes, but out of respect for the first wife of the man who is essentially going to be the Don, his matriarch, his home away from the business, the thing that keeps him going.
I think he's always going back to Kay. Kay will always be a part of Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I still
I feel like Apollonia, and this is a hard thing to say about a female character when we have very few female characters in the movie to root for or to latch onto.
Of them. That's the problem here.
Oh no, I agree it could be construed as a problem, but what I'm saying to you is I don't ever view the moment that Michael isn't going to be with Kay. I view Apollonia as a let's do a coming to America sowing his oats thing. And I also view her as fodder. As Apollonia blowing up is Michael not blowing up. And at some point in the movie, you know, if you've seen The Godfather a bunch of times and for me, what I've always started to notice, what I've really started to notice in rewatchings is that Michael starts immediately lining people up around him so that nobody can get to Michael.
Yeah.
And it starts happening near the right. It is a perfect strategy for him. And it starts happening in Sicily because think about it, he's miserable. He's running around like the guy yells at him, "Hey, you can't just run around." And then he goes in
for a second. The next scene that we have right after the blowing up is Ken, what does that have to do with anything? Anyway,
you did. Ken is merely pointing out. You have 2 more movies to go with the franchise, and then
next comment.
This might like a Bronx Tale, not as long. Bronx Tale, great movie by the way. Fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you should.
It has nothing to do with this.
It does.
The next, I like long movies. The next scene after this is when Don Corleone meets the
5 families. The 5 families, yeah.
Yeah. He mentions about, there will be no vengeance for Sonny. That's what's done is done, bygones is bygones. But yeah. Michael, I have to arrange to bring him home from Sicily. And there is not one fucking mention that there was already damage done over there.
I don't. Okay, so I understand what you're saying. I don't know that.
There.
A couple things. That sequence, and I agree, you can agree with me or disagree with me, Rich, and both of you. That sequence is not necessarily. That is for him to figure out who was responsible.
I'm aware of that,
Bronzini is the one that is the cause of chaos that nobody's known. And so when he says there's no bygones be bygones, whatever, he is just doing that
to test the waters.
The waters. And also he would not mention that something happened to Michael in Sicily. It goes against everything that the family talks about.
And even if he didn't mention it there, he could have said it at one point or another privately to Michael. Are you okay? Yeah. I just say Apollonia. And leave it at that. All he has to do is nod or shake his head, and then they get
unless he knows Michael doesn't give a fuck about Apollonia.
Or may I say, I don't think there's any evidence within the movie that anybody outside of Sicily knew about Apollonia to begin with. Remember,
that's a great point.
Like random super access to each other across the country.
That's a great point. Remember, Kay can't get.
Could have been brought across better. If that is the case, then it should have been brought across.
But don't they say we haven't had contact with Michael? Kay hasn't had contact with Michael.
That was prior to us meeting Apollonia.
Right, but we know that there's no
we don't know how long that extended.
We don't know how long that is, and we also don't know from a film perspective. Michael says to, I think it's Don Brasino. It's Don Brasino, San Brasino, whatever. The guy that's in Sicily.
He's also been back for a year and a half before he even approaches Kay.
Yes. Yes, because again, he's setting up the chess pieces.
I really don't think he gives a shit about her either.
Oh,
I think he gets really fucking cold.
Oh yeah, no, that's
the moment
that's Michael. You haven't even seen 2 yet. Where do you get there, Natasha? Woo! No spoilers. No spoilers. But you haven't seen Cold yet. You haven't seen Cold Michael yet. Michael's barely frigid. And
Al Pacino is, for me, this is one of the best roles I've ever seen him in. And
he's fantastic.
The reason why is he's not being his loud, brazen self.
Well, this was before he started doing that as an acting trick.
Yeah. Here, I love it because it's all in the eyes. He's just, you can tell when the shit.
Well, that's one of the reasons that Coppola really wanted him. Mm-hmm. It is a tremendous performance. Because this is part of the Oscar Decade Cavalcade, another thing we need to talk about critical response. We do need to talk about Oscar night in 1972 or 3. First off, interesting Oscar night. It's nominated for 11 Academy Awards. Best Original Score, although they have all kinds of problems with the Nino Rota score at some point because it was written for another movie, so eventually that gets kind of thrown out and they move something else in. Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Costume Design, there's your 1940s, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor, ready? James Caan, Robert Duvall, Al Pacino, all nominated for Best Supporting Actor. What a year to be there. None of them won, by the way. Best Actor, Brando. Best Director, Coppola. Best Picture, Albert S. Ruddy for the movie. And it wins 3 Academy Awards. Pacino doesn't show up to the Academy Awards because Pacino is upset that he wasn't nominated for Best Actor. So he doesn't show up. Brando,
on that, he should have been in the leading acting category.
Sure, but
Brando should have been supporting.
But Brando. Anyway, Brando doesn't show up either because this is the year. This is the year, kids. That Shailene Longfeather shows up to not accept the award for Best Actor. And then it wins Best Picture. So it wins 3 Academy Awards, which may or may not be a hint. So it wins Screenplay, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actor, Best Picture, although the award was declined by Brando. And so, you know, the critics who viewed it at the time it came out, amazing accolades, and just an incredible, like, the reviews. Some of the reviews are beautiful. And they're my favorite. I got to find it because I just had it and I fucking lost it. My favorite old-timer review is Pauline Kael, our good friend Pauline Kael of The New Yorker, who wrote, if there ever was a great example of how the best popular movies come out of merger and art, The Godfather is it. What are you saying oh shit about?
Oh, no, nothing. I just, I Googled the Shailene Longfeather.
Yes, if ever there was a great example of how the best popular movies come out of a merger of commerce and art, The Godfather is it. Which I think pretty much sums it up. And I was reading or talking. There's a podcast apparently somewhere called Movie or Film, right? I think it's a super interesting concept. It's no longer on. I'm very depressed it's not on because I would listen to this podcast. Not on our network, but I would desperately try to get him on our network because I think it's a fun concept. Movie or film, right? The question is movie or film. And The Godfather is one of the ones that you'd have a real tough time going either way because it's such a crowd pleaser, but it's also a really contemplative film about, you know, darkness seeping into the soul absolute power corrupting, absolutely. Right. And just, family, the darkness that occurs in families. Also, I just want to point out one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie. You have all these incredible gun down sequences, but one of the more incredible sequences, Michael comes into the room at one point, and Clemenza is making sauce. And it's this incredible, just really, first you make the meat in the pot, Michael. Then you put the meat in the pot, Michael. You let the meat brown. You take the meat out of the pot. You leave the pot going. Then you put in some sauce. You put tomatoes in. And then my secret ingredient, you put sugar. And then fucking, Pacino leaves and Caan comes over and goes, yeah, we're still going to send somebody with him. You know what I mean? Also, leave the gun, take the cannolis is fantastic. And that's where I wanted to start our legacy talk. This film is one of the most heavily quoted fan films of all time, right? There are so many quotable lines. Go to the mattresses. There are movie quotes from this movie that get quoted in other movies.
You got nailed. Quotes a lot of them.
Yes. Go to the mattresses. Yes. I set you up for that. I pitched you the ball. But this movie is one of the legacy of this movie. And this is something I knew, but it was subconscious knowing. One of the vignettes I watched today had David Chase, and David Chase says, without the Godfather, The Sopranos doesn't exist in any way, shape, or form. And then they go to a series of Sopranos pieces in this vignette where basically all the Sopranos are doing different bits of the Godfather. Paulie Walnuts drives up and his horn is the Godfather theme. Bada bing is something that Sonny says. So the legacy of this movie is it spawned an entire generation of movies and television that only exists in a world that has the Godfather.
I mean, it was
mind blowing.
It was just so impactful into just the pop culture zeitgeist at the time that, there's a great, I think it's second season Saturday Night Live sketch of a group therapy section. And
yes, Vito Corleone. It's the John Belushi. Belushi is Don Corleone going, and they shot my son 57 times.
Yeah. And he does the whole thing with the orange and he falls down dead, and because Elliot Gould is the host and he's playing the group session facilitator, and then they all get up and leave. There's a whole Second City SCTV thing with Joe Flaherty playing Don Corleone, and John Candy is playing Pavarotti. Yes,
and there's a whole they did a whole it sparkled throughout the entire season. I think 81. It's the legacy of this movie is astounding. Think about something basic. Think about The Simpsons. Fat Tony is right out of The Godfather. I found out I was today years old when I learned that the actor who plays Fat Tony, that's the longest he's ever played a character in his life. So 17 years he's played that character. I'm going up on the name. I'll get it in a second. Hold on. But yeah, I mean,
this past summer in Barbie, where the Kens are watching a bit of
all of the Kens are watching The Godfather. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. It's an astounding. It is an astounding bit that this movie has taken the zeitgeist. It's it's one of those movies where lines, take the gun, leave the cannoli, make sure you get 2 in the head. Sonny on the Causeway, for fuck's sake. There are so many things where this movie has a legacy. Like, think about no Sopranos without Simpsons. And the way David Chase described it is the Sopranos are living in a post-Godfather world. So they know about the Godfather. And the idea that you have a gangster show that knows the greatest gangster movie of all time is sitting somewhere that they reference. Like, they were talking about Little Paulie Van Sant, right? Van Sant had all of the, like, they were going over it. David Chase goes, we gave him the Michael Corleone lines that he would just, like, he would spit out, and they were horrible, but everybody in the Sopranos universe laughed at it because they thought it was great. Because they loved it. They loved The Godfather. And I just found it, you know, it's an incredible thing when you get it and you... Joe Mantegna is the person. He's played Fat Tony on The Simpsons for 17 years. Joe Mantegna, longest character of his career, is what he said in the one thing. And it's an amazing thing that this legacy and franchise viability, it's constantly being reworked or rejiggered, right? Like moved around, pieced. Like Joe has the 7-hour version sitting in his house. I have all the different, like I have the 2 originals, and I have the Coda of Michael Corleone, which just came out like 2 years ago, which is a recut of Godfather 3.
I have on Blue that I have the box set of the 3 from the Coppola restoration from 2007. Before that, I had an earlier restoration, which was
it's an incredible, and the restoration was really well done. Do you know how the restoration came to be? Like I was intrigued by this. So, right around the time DreamWorks was acquired by Paramount, Coppola called Spielberg and said, "Hey, now that you're at Paramount, why don't you go to the head of the company? You guys just acquired DreamWorks, right? Just acquired the animation studio and all the the different productions. Go to the head of the studio and see if they'll do a restoration of The Godfather." And Spielberg, first day of that deal, went to the head of Paramount, and he got, I think it was like $25 million for the restoration. Which, you know, that's one thing about this generation of filmmakers that are getting older. They really do love films, even if it's not their own, right? Mm-hmm. And Coppola is one of those guys that he doesn't always succeed, but I desperately want him to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So Natasha, this is your first time watching The Godfather. Can you think of anything where you're like looking at it now where you're like sit back and you realize like you've got mail thing, right? Like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it makes perfect sense now. Tom Hanks like going like this on the computer.
I hadn't seen The Godfather in its entirety. I saw the first 15 minutes and I've seen a couple of clips here and there over the past few years. So yes, I obviously knew what the hell this was before I even sat down and watched it this afternoon.
I didn't mean it as a bad thing. I was just, is it something you feel like the legacy in the franchise is just, it's there? It's like Godfather world exists?
It's there, but it's dangerous.
Okay. I'll ask why.
I find not amongst you lovely gentlemen or amongst people who really enjoy film, and maybe this is another reason why it's put me off for so long actually sitting to watch it. You understand it. You understand when you pull it apart. You get the eccentricities. You get the beautiful cinematography, the wonderfully written script, the performances, which are so subtle and yet so commanding. Whereas a lot of men my age or younger, it's very toxic. It gives off an energy like Fight Club or American Psycho, which we had.
I was just going to say that. We just had that conversation.
They do not get it. And because of that, it's an uber masculine film.
I actually think it is an uber masculine film. I agree with that.
But
I
if
think
you
there's
don't understand it, it's dangerous.
I think the interesting thing here is, how do I say it? I agree that there's toxic masculinity in it. Sonny certainly represents that. What I would say is, I don't think it's as toxic as other things. And one of the things I would say is, I think it has a very distinct feeling on how, if women should be hit or not. Like, it has a very distinct, opinion on, standing up for yourself, and like the idea that, I think for the most part, it is a male fantasy movie, but I don't necessarily think it's negativity, because I think it sways from the violence, like Rich was saying, and goes more into honor, a code, loyalty, family connections.
And again, I think that's what elevates it. But if you don't understand that,
well,
fair.
If you're not willing to look,
but I think that particular part of the film is painted pretty broadly and pretty vividly. Would you agree with that, Rich?
That's not the film's fault if somebody isn't willing to actively engage, or if they're only doing a surface scan of what they see and not actively thinking about it. That's not the film's fault. That's really, that viewer's
No, you're
fault.
right. It's not the film's fault. But think about it. Why the hell was that movie picked to spoof in Barbie? Think about it.
Because I don't think it has anything to do with the maleness.
Oh, the hell it doesn't.
I think it has more to do with the fact that if you sit down with a Godfather fan and you don't know about the Godfather, you're going to be with that Godfather fan for 2 hours. I think it's more of a. I think it's more. It's not necessarily. I don't think it's a bluff on the men being toxic thing. I think it's more of a fandom thing. Like, people love this movie so much. It could be both, but I think it's more sways to that decision, because the guys don't want to engage in the movie. They just want to tell the Barbies about the movie. Like, hey, if you watch this shot here, it's very much the what?
Think about what you just said. They're mansplaining.
They are, but it's not. That's fair. I agree with that. They are mansplaining, but it's also the idea of, Rich, do you get the same thing from me? Like, the idea that it's like sitting down with a Star Wars fan. In Barbie, when it occurs, have you seen this movie? Oh my God, you need to see this movie. What do you mean you haven't seen it? It's more, I don't think it has anything to do with the male toxicity. I think it has more to do with them finding something that they really love, that they just want to share and go crazy with.
None of those fans were real Barbie, were real Godfather fans. They were using it to elevate their idea of what the masculine feature is, what it's supposed to look like. And then they go ahead and they mansplain it to women without ever fully understanding the actual behind the scenes of the Godfather itself. See my point?
I see your point, but I don't think it's the male toxicity. I just think it's people, like, I think it's the weird fandom thing.
I was put off by it for so long because I've had it shoved down my throat by people like that.
Well, they shouldn't do that.
Well, they do, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm going to say something, and I know you're going to know what I'm talking about. Where I have been resistant to watching certain things because it seems like there's a big conversation about it, and I'm just like, I'm tired of hearing about this. I don't care. I don't want to. And you and I have had discussions about that. And where we've both come to the conclusion of, like, well, we need to work past the fandom and just concentrate on, the actual work itself.
And obviously, when push came to shove, I sat down today I made certain that all my chores were done in advance. So I was not going, oh my God, there's dust over there. I need to go clean that shelf. It's annoying me.
Well, that's good. You're being a good Connie. That was a joke. That was a joke. That was a joke. Come on, it was funny. Laugh. It was a good one.
I was this close to slamming my computer shut.
Come on, it was a good joke. We play, we laugh.
All I know is JW. Right now, you're really lucky. You are about what 400,
1,500 miles. I'm 1,100 miles away.
Off mic, I'm going to
safe.
tell you about my Valentine's Day.
I'm safe. Okay, so there's a TV version too. There's a TV version they cut together. Actually broke records when they ran it, Joe. Funny you should mention that. Broke records. They ran it on Saturday night and Monday night. And it broke records on NBC. It broke records for the cost of the syndication, and also broke records for ratings for a movie premiering on television with very little editing to it. Because it's not really... Is there a Brando Godfather story leading to Superman?
He was trying to change the subject.
He might have been. The only story leading to Superman is that after Brando gets the Godfather, he gets work. He gets work again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but
Simple.
Not a specific thing of like, oh, so and so was working on the Godfather and
the Godfather. Now he's the Godfather of Colwell. Damn it, we got it right. Okay. What were you going to say? What was your thing going to be? Did you forget it?
What thing?
Me?
Who?
Yeah,
what?
you.
Which one?
Joe. No, Joe.
Oh,
not
Joe.
Joe. Rich.
Wait, Mario Puzo did do some drafts on the Superman script for the Salkinds, but I think that was entirely separate from the idea of Brando being hired to play Jor-El.
But was that the big epiphany we're gonna have with Natasha and I?
What?
Did I miss it?
No.
Did I miss
What the hell are you talking about? We're turning into an Abbott and Costello script, and one of us is a third wheel.
It's okay. I'm 75%. Anyway, but it is a classic. I don't know that the legacy ever goes away. I think it gets stronger, and also I think it's one of those movies that people actively push on other people. Is that a fair assessment?
The cops
like
are outside my window right now.
We pushed it on Natasha. We're like the dirty narcotics people in the movie.
There's cops right outside my house right now.
Maybe they hear you talking about the Godfather. So this is a perfect time to end, and a good time to end for us. But it's a great movie. I heartily recommend it. Are you going to watch 2 now? I know she's going to check the.
What's going on out there?
What are you doing? Is somebody getting murdered outside? Jesus Christ.
He's being a goof.
She is being a goof. Okay, so that ends our Godfather talk. Next week, Rich.
Yes, I'm going to watch it.
Okay, Godfather 2, I think it's better. De Niro's great. De Niro's fantastic.
I've heard.
Okay, next week, we go back to the Western. Next week, we do Unforgiven. I'm going to be honest, it is not one of my favorite Westerns. This is a true statement. Also, I do want to point out, I don't know if you know this, we did 42, 72, 92. I don't know how we did it, but it is. So we have Unforgiven next week, which of course Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris in what was widely regarded as a reinvigoration or reinvention of the Western wheel. We will talk about it. I will rewatch it for the first time in a long time. It's not one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies. No. It is not one of my favorite Westerns.
Arthur?
I have other Westerns that I feel are, I don't know. Maybe
Tombstone for the first time today. Until
you watched Tombstone?
I was going to watch Tombstone for the first time.
You're going to love Tombstone. You want to talk about toxic masculinity. Tombstone's even for the good toxic masculinity. Even for the guys we like, they're awful people. It's great. Love Tombstone. Also, the single, I would say, the single greatest performance of the 90s that didn't get Oscar nominated. Yes.
Yeah, I've
yes.
That shoved down my throat.
It's not a joke. There's a reason. There's a reason that everybody talks about it. He eats scenery. He eats other grown men. He eats everything in that movie. He chaws on horses. It's that movie had
to work again.
What was that?
Nothing.
What did you say?
Nothing.
You said a horrible Val Kilmer thing.
Yeah, I did.
It's terrible. He's sick, you know. He's really sick.
I meant before he got sick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but he worked a lot in the 90s and 2000s before he got sick. But anyway, we'll see where can we find 8 Years with Gilda, Miss Natasha Bogutzki?
Rich?
That can be found on the Cineverse Productions Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. It's about the only thing on our YouTube channel at the moment. We will be adding more content as we roll out a few other things that we've already been out to film festivals with. As we go to film festivals, we'll probably have some little bits of video there. And hopefully that's going to grow over the next year or 2 or 5. All of my writing can be found at FilmBuffOnline.com, which also has a Facebook page. And I do 2 other podcasts. One is Film Scribes. It's the official podcast of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. And we're going to have an episode coming up sometime next week after we all see a certain part 2 of a movie this week and record something on Sunday. The other podcast that I do with my very bestest friend, the lovely and talented Natasha Bogutzki. And that's called the Big Picture Podcast. And you can find that at bigpicturepod.com, or there's also a link on FilmBuff.
Natasha, you got anything you want to promote or anything?
No, I'm very boring tonight. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have nothing. I have jack shit. Jack and shit. And Arthur.
And Jack just left town. Okay. Rich, you got anything else before I go on?
No, that's it.
Okay. You can find me, JW the Movie Guy, on Facebook, on the Twitter, on the Threads, on Blue Sky, on Instagram now, everywhere. JW the Movie Guy. You can find me there. You can also find me on the Indie Escape page on Facebook. Also, the Loud and Nerdy group on Facebook, which is 800 strong, wacky people. You can also find me here every Monday night with my good friend Rich Drees. But you can also find me on Tuesday nights on this network at 9 p.m. for Loud and Nerdy. We'll be here tomorrow night to talk about the NEPA Comic-Con, how that went, how the boys did, and everything. Thank you for joining us tonight. Next week, Unforgiven. Thanks for all the kind wishes and warm wishes. I'm appreciative of it. Have a great night. We'll see everybody next week. Take care.
Say goodbye. Bye.